In Philadelphia, the Grizzlies beat the 76ers, as we just saw right there. And Joel Embiid, and a columnist who recently wrote a column on Joel Embiid and referenced his late brother and his son, they got into a verbal back and forth. They had an emotional moment in that locker room, and it turned into a physical altercation. Sources tell me, and a league spokesperson tells me, that the NBA has commenced an investigation.
This one may be a bit of a delicate situation, as you heard the reporter Shams of ESPN break down what's going on, but we're still going to get through it. Let's start here though. This is not the first investigation this year already that Joel Embiid has been linked to. As some of y'all probably know, there was a player participation policy. The NBA was investigating Philadelphia with that, and they basically came to the conclusion that he was injured with knee problems, but there was inconsistencies with what the injury was labeled, and so they were still fined the Philadelphia 76ers $100,000. And that fine comes from the player participation policy. I did a whole video about that in itself, breaking it down. Let's get closer to what we're actually talking about today. There's a video where Joel Embiid looks like he's at a practice answering questions from local media. I believe, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but in this video, he's being asked about his health and him missing games. He starts listing all of the injuries he had to play through, the concerns, the worries about them. Despite that, he still went out there and tried to do his best to give an honest effort. He goes on to basically say, what I sacrificed for this city, Philadelphia, can't be questioned, and he's not really understanding why people are. And then he says, like that Marcus guy or whatever his name is,
I've broken my face twice. I came back early with the risk of losing my vision. You know, see people saying he doesn't want to play. Like that dude, he's not here. Marcus, whatever his name is.
Marcus Hayes is the name of the reporter that he was brushing off when he was mentioning him. He is a sports columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, and he wrote articles really talking about Joel Embiid being injured too much and the season ticket holders of the Philadelphia 76ers deserving a refund since they purchased these tickets presumably to see Joel Embiid for the main part, and he's been out for a lot of these games to start off the regular season. Now, apparently, Marcus Hayes is the reporter that Joel Embiid got into this quote-unquote altercation with, or shoving match, shouting, whatever you want to call it. And I have an NBC Philadelphia article I'm going to read to y'all that pretty much explains what happened. I'm still going to say, put an emphasis on apparently. The NBA is still investigating what's going on. So whatever I read to you, just keep that in mind. Very quickly, before I get into the article, I want to also address the notion of season ticket holders being refunded since Joel Embiid isn't playing games because of his injuries. As someone who's been to several NBA games over the years, when I get my ticket, the only thing that I'm entitled to is the seat that the purchase comes with when I have this ticket in my hand. Outside of that, it's not up to me to decide who's going to play that game, how many minutes, what plays they will run. That's all the coaching staff and the team. And if I'm a Philadelphia 76ers fan, buying tickets, especially season ticket holders, buying that bundle, you have to take into consideration that Joel Embiid perhaps will be injured just because of all of the years that he's dealing with this issue. To me, it's just logic. If you buy season tickets, just know that Joel Embiid may miss some games. That argument being made also ties into the previous video I did with the player participation policy, why the NBA needs stars like Joel Embiid to play when it comes to viewership. All right, that's a whole nother topic in itself. Now let's get to this article. This was written by Noah Levick and Kevin Looney of NBC Philadelphia. A visibly angry Joel Embiid shouted at and eventually shoved the Philadelphia newspaper columnist in a locker room altercation after the struggling 76ers lost to the Memphis Grizzlies on Saturday night. That's what Shams is basically saying. A shoving match happened. The NBA said it has opened an investigation into the matter. Embiid took issue with Philadelphia Inquirer columnist Marcus Hayes, who mentioned the All-Star Center's late brother and his son, both named Arthur, in his columns questioning Embiid's professionalism and effort not being in shape after playing in the Paris Olympics. Embiid is yet to play for the 76ers this season. Let me stop right there. When we as people, whether in the media, somebody on YouTube like myself, or a fan, are critiquing our favorite sports player, artist, why do we have to get personal and mention family members? And now, I don't know the context that he said it in, but somebody's family member who passed away, and this is a part of your critique of their game, why not just focus on what they're doing on the court, period? This is where you get into murky waters and you can start offending people beyond just talking about the game or whatever it is that the person does that we see in the public. And if the critique is Joel Embiid is not on the court enough, period, to even criticize his game, then just leave it at that. you mention family in a way that's not uplifting somebody publicly or defending them, it's gonna go wrong in most cases. And somebody had to approve of this article being published. So it's really the head people at the Philadelphia Inquirer that I would be looking at too if I were Joel Embiid. I did see a tweet where Marcus Hayes apologized, I believe, for parts of what he was saying in this column, or maybe he took something out. I have the tweet. I'm going to get into that as we continue on with this article right now. As reporters entered the locker room to talk to players, Embiid stood and confronted Hayes. There's people around, so it looks like there's a lot of witnesses and there seems to be some truth to what's going on. All right. The next time you bring up my dead brother and my son again, you're going to see what I'm going to do to you, and I'm going to have to live with the consequences, Embiid said to Hayes. So that's a man who's looking at it like this is way bigger than basketball. You can say I'm wrong for what I'm doing or how I'm approaching it. This is family. I'm going to handle it the way that I know best. If that's the case, I can't criticize Embiid. If he's willing to live with whatever consequences that come because he believes he's standing on something that is very principled and from a moral standpoint bigger than the game that he's playing, then it is what it is at that point. I don't got anything to criticize Joel Embiid with. What I will say is separately, making a whole different point from a fan perspective, it is unfortunate to see all of this happen. It takes away from the game. I'm going to reiterate though, it wouldn't have got to this point if you're not using family as a critique for somebody's game, especially if you have tension with this person or there's some hostility. If there's one thing I could give Marcus Hayes in terms of credit, at least he stood in his face and didn't run away or try to back down or act like some anonymous source. This is what Jaylen Brown was getting into, where he said, and it's not quite the same thing because it wasn't a personal attack on this level with family involved, but Jaylen Brown wanted to talk to this person, see him face to face. Marcus Hayes stood in front of Joel Embiid. All right, other than that, I still look at it as this is the wrong approach when it comes to reporting, but I'm not a reporter. I'm just a dude on YouTube. What do I know? The article goes on to say Embiid continued with several instances of profanity in the next few sentences. Hayes offered an apology, which Embiid did not want. That's not the effing first time, Embiid said. That goes back to what I just mentioned right now. If you have some type of hostility with this individual, there's tension, you know this person doesn't like you, why even go this direction, period? It's asking for trouble, man. I don't really get it. All right. Embiid later said that he does not care what reporters say, but you do, Hayes answered. Embiid appeared to get louder at that point, and not long afterward pushed Hayes on the shoulder while the team's public relations chief got between them. Another PR person moved Tyrese Maxey's interview to the hallway outside the locker room, trying to clear reporters. Wow, this seems pretty big, man. Like it really escalated and everyone here knows what's going on. All right. At the same time, a security person asked the media not to report on what had happened. Embiid yelled over the security guard. Yeah, with all of this commotion going on, it's definitely going to be reported. You can't hide something like this. All right. And that's when it starts mentioning Hayes' apology that he made on X, formerly known as Twitter, on October the 23rd. I'll actually pull that up right now so you can see it for yourself. As you see in this tweet that he posted, he said that he removed the picture. I'm not exactly sure what he's talking about. I never saw the original article. In this article that I was just reading, it said that the Inquirer removed the references to Embiid's late brother and son. Overall, man, what do you guys think about this whole situation? Do you agree with Joel Embiid's approach, how he's handling it? Or are you somebody who thinks that he needs to take more of a professional approach and do this a whole nother way? Keep in mind as well, the NBA is still investigating what is happening with this whole ordeal. New details could emerge within the next coming days after this video. This could die down and we all move on. That's what I'm hoping for. All right, the Philadelphia 76ers, they're 1-4 as well. I'm just really hoping we get back to basketball. Hit me up in the comment section nonetheless. And as always, salute for listening. Peace.